girlfriend of a Boston police officer whose body was found
in the murder trial of Karen Reed after the jury said it was unable to
they
reach
will
a
retry
verdict.
Karen Reed
is
after a
accused
judge
of
declared a
Welcome back, alternates. We are back from the weekend, and it's the start of week 5 of the Karen Reed trial. It's day 18, but it feels like day 1000. But who's counting, right? Shout out to Tab, who said that I could never sit as a real juror because my face speaks volumes. And this trial, it's true. I just cannot keep it together. So before I begin, I just wanted to let you know that hopefully you are following the alternate, so you already know this. But wherever you catch the show, we just dropped a week 1 recap of the Sean Combs federal trial. So be sure to check it out. Tab covered week 1, and I was in complete shock. So check it out. But let's get on with today's show. On day 18, we had 3 experts take the stand. The first 2 were DNA experts, and the last one was a digital forensics expert. And y'all, experts are a snooze fest. But watching a good cross-examination is like watching an action movie for us nerds. And I was there for it today, all day. The first expert on the stand was Nicholas Bradford with the Bode Technology, or the company's called Bode Technologies. And specifically, he is a DNA expert. He was there to talk about DNA and the infamous taillight that we've heard so much about. He testified about the science behind DNA, and ultimately, he said that the DNA found on the taillight was a mixture of DNA, meaning that it had genetic material from more than one person. John O'Keefe, the victim, could not be excluded from that DNA mixture. In addition to testing John's DNA to the mixture, they also tested the 2 lead agents, Yuri Buchanan and Michael Proctor. And the 2 leads were excluded from that DNA mixture, meaning that their DNA was not found on the taillight. The defense during cross-examination, they latched on and they clarified that the DNA was a mixture, not a clean match to John. And they also amplified the part where the DNA on the taillight was not tested or even compared against Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, or even Kevin Albert. The expert couldn't say when the DNA was deposited or how. It could have been in his testimony, or, he kind of acknowledged that it could have been there from a different day, I would say that the evidence for this particular witness came off as suggestive, not definitive, which was probably what the defense was going for. Next up was Karl Miyasako, a mitochondrial DNA and analyst from Bode Technologies. He was literally here today to analyze a single string of hair found on the rear bumper of Karen Reed's SUV. He testified that the hair found matched O'Keefe's maternal lineage. It was a mitochondrial DNA match, which basically excludes 99.85% of the general population. However, it cannot uniquely identify O'Keefe, as mitochondrial DNA, we learned today, is shared among maternal relatives. So the defense was that they basically said it could be any relative of John's that is related to him by his mother, maybe like a brother or something else, But listen, the expert I have been waiting for, at least I thought I had been waiting for this entire trial, was a digital forensic expert. His name was Shannon Burgess, and he took the stand today. He's employed by a company called Aperture, which is a forensics expert company. I initially thought that this guy was going to be talking to us about the SUV black box, whether Karen's car was going forward or backwards, remember? Because that's what the prosecution said we would be hearing at some point. But this expert was more on the stand to talk about timeline and when Karen's car was turned on and off. This expert, Shannon, wrote a report for this case on January 30th, 2025. He then provided a supplemental report on May 8th, 2025. That report really put the defense in a tizzy because that was just a few days ago. But ultimately, the judge did allow it to come in. The initial testimony from Shannon was very interesting in that he talked about all the different computers inside of a vehicle. They are all called modules. There's an airbag module, an infotainment module, a telematics I think I said that right, but a telematics module. And all of these things connect your car, at least that one, the telematics connects your car to the internet, and everything else connects your car to something else, right? This expert was specifically there today to talk about two things, a 3-point turn maneuver and a backing maneuver. He discussed that the car's clock is different from a regular clock. It starts running on the car's own internal clock. It's called the running clock. You know, they could have come up with a better name, but they didn't. In essence, when the car is off, it's off. There is no running clock. But once you start the vehicle, the running clock begins. And then you can tell what you do, certain things, like what the different things that you do inside of a vehicle are, right? So when you turn on the car, that's when the running clock begins. Now, the internal running clock is different for different cars. Even cars that are the same make and model, it could often depend even on the trim. In any event, he found by using the car's computer and using other things to corroborate his assessment, such as John's phone and video surveillance, the following. He found that on January 29th, 2022, Karen's car turned on at 12:12 a.m. and it powered off at 12:42 a.m., which, if true, meant that Karen was at One Meadows by 12:42 a.m. And if she really did hit John, because remember, John was allegedly dying or dead or dying on the ground, it would have happened before 12:42 a.m. All right. He also found, now I just added that last part, but this expert was just there to testify about those two times, 12:12 and 12:42. He also said that Karen's car started back up at 5:07 a.m. when she left Jen's house, and that she returned at 5:46 a.m., remember, to search for John again. Her car was then turned on at 12:35 a.m. when her and her dad came to pick the car up, and that it was turned off at 2:12 p.m. when it arrived at her dad's house. It was then turned on for about a minute at 4:11 p.m. to be put on the tow truck, and then it was back on to remove the car from the tow truck at 5:34 p.m. All right. With regards to John's phone, it showed that he was in the car when it made a 3-point turn from 12:23 a.m. to 12:24 a.m. John's phone was last used or off by 12:32 a.m. But then when the defense came up to cross-examine this witness, it was as if nothing he had just testified to mattered, because defense attorney Alessi came out like a boxer, like no kidding, swinging punches. Now, I don't want to get too into the weeds, but basically Alessi called out this expert for basically being a big, fat, liar, pants on fire. Not necessarily about his work yet. We would get to that eventually. He called Shannon out on his college degree. You see, the CV that the witness provided to the court to be basically made into or to be allowed to testify as an expert, the CV provided that to the court showed that he had a degree that was currently pending. But on the Aperture website, the expert's degree shows as a given. And on LinkedIn, again, it shows as a given. In fact, it says that he earned his bachelor's degree back in 2016 through 2018. But wait, the defense points out that LinkedIn sends you notifications when someone looks at your page, and that just within the last 72 hours, this expert, Shannon, must have been notified that the defense team was looking at his LinkedIn page, where he says that he has an earned bachelor's degree. And guess what just so happened to disappear within the last 72 hours? That's right, the LinkedIn account is no longer available for public view. But don't you worry, the defense had a fully printed version of the LinkedIn profile, and they introduced it into evidence. Oh my gosh, it was such a blow to the prosecution. Listen, a degree might not be the end-all, be-all for anybody, but it definitely goes to your credibility, especially if you are putting yourself out there as an expert in forensics on your company's website. But wait, once Alessi had already annihilated the expert's credibility, he really goes in. Now, remember the two reports that Shannon wrote, one in January and then one just a few weeks ago? Apparently, the defense basically called him out on the so-called supplemental report, claiming that he wrote the report once the witness saw that the defense's expert had written a report calling out that experts for all his mistakes. Shannon said that he didn't make any mistakes, that he just made misinterpretations, or that there were just a few misinterpretations that he wanted to clarify. And just then, as the defense attorney and the witness are having a conversation, Alessi whips out the updated report to read it. And the actual witness on the stand acknowledges that he made another copy and paste error. Oh my gosh, listen. At that point, I wanted to call it a day because I have dinner to make for a bunch of kids that I have. And this witness was just wasting my time. I mean, those are my feelings as an alternate, so I can only imagine what the jury is feeling. But don't worry, because the end of trial creeped up and I was so happy to be done today, as I am sure that Shannon Burgess was happy to be done as well. I just kept thinking, is that guy going to lose his job? He's been doing this for 10 years, but this testimony isn't going well for him and he's not even done yet. At this point, we will see him again on day 19, and I guess we'll see how the Commonwealth will attempt to rehabilitate this guy. But it's not looking so good. Although, in his defense, he did testify that he hasn't updated his LinkedIn account in years. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and I hate to admit this, but same. My LinkedIn profile picture is actually from 2009. That's 16 years ago. But also, just to play devil's advocate for the defense here, the LinkedIn profile for this guy is linked from the company website. So he should have really updated it. Anyway, I wish I could give you more substance for day 18, but that was all. Don't forget to come back tomorrow for day 19. And if you have been keeping up with us, thank you so very much. Feel free to share the show with friends, family, and if you're feeling extra generous, drop us a 5-star rating. All right, alternates, we will see you tomorrow on day 19. But until then, think like a juror and decide like one too.